Miss Hughes, we've got a situation. The intern looked like someone had told him Santa wasn't real and he owed back taxes. I set down my tea and took the folder. Confidential acquisition terms, sent to every VP far too early. One leak to the press and regulators would be in by market open. Get Delilah to pull that email. Wipe it everywhere. Then bring me the metadata. Who opened it? Did any copy leave the network? Voice level. The way you explain folding a fitted sheet. Annoying but doable. That's what they paid me for. Containing explosions before the shrapnel hit the C-suite. 9 years as chief risk officer, on paper. In reality, I made problems vanish before the board even knew they existed. Levi Harrington hired me after the IPO nearly collapsed from accounting messes no one talks about. He needed someone 3 moves ahead. I cleaned it up, rewrote compliance, kept his parachute inflated. By 9:15 the leak was dead. New protocol live. Talking points drafted. Most of the exec team never knew there'd been a crisis. The CFO called me a wizard in a pencil skirt. Which is why I also rewrote conduct policy 3 times. I returned to my office, sipped my now lukewarm tea and opened my calendar. That's when I saw it. My standing meeting with Levi. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for 468 weeks. Gone. Not rescheduled. Erased. My name deleted from Friday's strategy session too. Not declined. Deleted. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. I checked my system logs. Backend access still there, but 3 critical folders had been downgraded the night before. While I was home feeding my cat and watching cooking shows I'd never try. No anger. Just silence. The kind that falls in a forest right before you realize something with teeth is near. I've seen corporate betrayal enough to smell it 72 hours before the severance hits. This wasn't a walkout with security firing. This was the quiet kind. The strategic realignment, where the CEO's nephew becomes EVP and the people who actually know how things work start getting exit packages. I left early, unusual for me. As the elevator doors closed, my phone vibrated. Another meeting removed. Source: executive override. They were sanitizing me out. At home, I opened the encrypted file cabinet I hadn't touched since the merger 4 years ago. Original incorporation docs, dormant LCs, forgotten agreements. Found the folder. Emergency Protocols, Section 9.3. It stared back like a spring coiled for years. And I smiled. Levi's office screamed expensive minimalism, glass walls, city view worth 6 figures a year. He sat behind his desk in effortlessly important casual. Beside him, his nephew Ethan Carver. 28. Freshly promoted to Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. A title meaning nothing, carrying everything. Ethan looked like he'd watched 3 TED Talks and now believed he was Steve Jobs. Tight suit. Overpriced haircut. A smile rehearsed in the mirror. I closed the door with quiet precision, the kind that makes people nervous. "Melody, thanks for coming," Levi said, warmth so fake it could sue for defamation. I didn't sit. Stood, hands at my sides, face blank. Ethan cleared his throat. "We're restructuring. Flatter hierarchy. Agile teams." I blinked once. "You're firing me." Levi flinched. Not how I'd frame it. "How then?" "We're eliminating your role," Ethan read. "Effective immediately. Strategic realignment." HR slid an envelope across the desk. "Generous severance. Healthcare. Reference letter." She said it like I should be grateful for my own execution. "Paperwork finalized yesterday," she added. "Surrender credentials today. Personal items are being packed. Discreet exit in 20 minutes. Discreet. The word hung like a threat. Levi leaned in. "You've been an asset, Melody. But we're moving in a new direction." I pulled my fountain pen, custom nib, forensic-grade ink signature. Years ago, I'd built a system tying its pressure profile to immutable timestamps. Difference. Diane frowned. "We have pens here. I'll use mine." I signed the acknowledgement, not the NDA, not the non-compete. Just the notice. Ink pressed perfectly. Verified. Time-stamped. Recapped the pen. Sid. Ethan looked disappointed. No tears. No drama. I picked up the envelope. "Thank you for the opportunity." Voice dry. Diane half rose, expecting to escort me out. I'll see myself out. I walked past desks. Eyes darted away. Receptionist wouldn't look up. My reflection in the glass. Composed. Professional. One hair out of place. I fixed it. Outside, I got in my car, cranked the AC and stared at the envelope in my lap. Strategic realignment. The paper still warm from the printer. I opened my phone. Email access. Revoked. Calendar sync. Disabled. Internal messaging. Gone. But my private archive was still live. Untouched because they didn't even know it existed. I typed. Trigger clause. Up came the document. Buried deep in the corporate structure. Contingency Activation Protocol 9.3. Dated 4 years ago during the merger chaos. It referenced an LLC agreement. Outlined emergency conditions. Specified equity redistribution triggers. And bore Levi Harrington's digital signature. Verified, archived, legally binding. I read the activation clause again. Involuntary termination by someone with a familial tie to leadership. Processed retroactively, automatic activation. Retroactive. Ethan said the paperwork was finalized yesterday. Familial connection. Ethan Carver, Levi's nephew. They'd walked straight into it. My hands were steady. Everything slowed. Crystallized. 9 years of crisis management had led to this. This time I wasn't fixing their mess, I was collecting on mine. Unit 312 at the storage facility. Code 8-16-4. My mother's birthday. Behind clutter and a broken desk, a fireproof cabinet. A lockbox. Combination, left 18, right 9, left 33. Click. Inside, failsafe protocols. Not plans. These were burn it all down papers. I flipped through. Expired reinstatement rights, inapplicable protections. Then found it. Protocol 9.3. Contingency activation upon improper termination. Original copy. Signed in blue ink by me, Levi, and external counsel. Witnessed. Notarized. Perfect. If terminated under these exact conditions, controlling equity in the trust vehicle, holding 68% of voting shares, would transfer to me. They'd handed me a loaded gun 4 years ago and forgotten it was there. I pulled out my phone. Arthur Caldwell. It's urgent. 30 seconds later. Melody. What do you need? Document authentication. Signatures, notarization, timestamp filing. Tonight. He didn't ask why. Where are you? Bring cash. Double rate. Already planned on it. An hour later, Arthur scanned, verified, notarized, and filed everything. Done. You've got original authentication, third-party verification, state filing confirmation. Undeniable. I paid him in cash, $4,000. He didn't count it. Just slid it away with a look that said good luck. Driving home, packet secured on the passenger seat, I knew. Tomorrow the board met at 2 p.m. They'd all be there. Levi, Ethan, the CFO, legal counsel. And at exactly 2 p.m. they'd receive the email. I logged into the compliance system I'd built. The one that still recognized me as admin. Uploaded the packet. Set delivery for 2 p.m. sharp. Subject line. Mandatory equity review. Protocol 9.3 activation. At 2:01 p.m. A second email would auto-send to regulators and the SE. Compliance fulfilled. No human intervention needed. Everything was armed. All I had to do now was wait. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and let the silence settle around me. Most people don't understand that revenge isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with speeches or confrontations. Real revenge is paperwork filed correctly. Clauses activated at the right moment. Systems you built 3 years ago finally doing exactly what you designed them to do. By this time tomorrow, everything would change. And I wouldn't have to say a single word. I slept better than I had in months. No alarms. No anxiety dreams about presentations or crisis management. Just solid, uninterrupted sleep. The kind you get when you've finally stopped bracing for impact and started embracing it. I woke up at 7, made coffee, and went through my morning routine like it was any other day. Except it wasn't. By 8 a.m. I was dressed. Professional but not trying too hard. Navy blazer. Simple blouse. The outfit you wear when you're done asking for permission. I drove to the office. Parked in my usual spot. Muscle memory from 9 years of routine. Walked through the lobby. The security guard did a double take when he saw me. Miss Hughes, I thought you... I'm here for the board meeting, I said calmly, not stopping. But your badge was... I held up my phone showing the meeting invite. Still in the system. Still technically valid for another 18 hours. He hesitated. Then stepped aside. I took the elevator to the executive floor. Walked past the reception area. Past the conference rooms where I'd spent countless hours solving problems that were now someone else's responsibility. I reached conference room A at exactly 1:58 p.m. Through the glass walls I could see them all gathered. Levi at the head of the table. Ethan beside him looking far too comfortable in his expensive suit. The CFO, the COO, 3 board members and the general counsel. I opened the door. The conversation stopped like someone had hit pause on reality. Melody, Levi said, half rising. What are you doing here? I have a standing invitation to board meetings, I replied. Unless that's been revoked? Legal counsel glanced at his tablet. Technically, no. The access was scheduled to terminate at end of business yesterday, but the system update didn't process until this morning. I smiled. Technology can be unreliable. Ethan cleared his throat. This isn't really appropriate. Then maybe you should have processed my termination correctly, I said, voice level. But since I'm here, I'll stay. I sat down in my usual chair. 4th from the left. Across from the CFO. Nobody moved. Levi exchanged a look with Ethan. Then he forced a smile. Of course. You're welcome to observe. How generous. At exactly 2 p.m. the conference room's screen flickered. The presentation Ethan had been about to show disappeared, replaced by a system notification. Incoming priority notification. Legal Compliance Division. General counsel frowned at his tablet. He tapped it. Then his expression changed. Subtle. But I saw it. The color draining. The slight tightening around his eyes. What is it? Levi asked. It's a filing notification. From the Equity Trust Administration System. What kind of filing? The CFO asked. Counsel didn't answer. He was reading. Scrolling. His associate leaned over, whispered something and went pale. The screen updated. A document appeared. Header. Contingency Protocol 9.3. Activation confirmed. Below it, Administrator, Melody Hughes. Status, executed. Timestamp, 9:47 a.m. previous day. What the hell is this? Levi demanded. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded calmly. That's the contingency protocol we established during the merger. You signed it. April 14th, 4 years ago. I didn't sign any. Yes, you did, counsel interrupted, voice tight. It's in the archives. I'm looking at the verification right now. Original signatures. Notarized. Filed with the state. Levi grabbed his own tablet, started scrolling. Ethan looked confused. What protocol? Counsel cleared his throat. It appears there's a clause embedded in our LLC equity structure. If certain conditions are met, administrative control of the trust transfers. Transfers to who? Ethan demanded. To me, I said. Silence. The board chair, a woman named Catherine Frost who rarely spoke but always paid attention, leaned forward. Explain. Kept my voice even. During the merger we created LLC 12B to handle executive equity and voting shares. As a failsafe against hostile takeovers or fraudulent terminations, we embedded a contingency clause. If I was terminated under specific circumstances, involuntary, retroactive, initiated by someone with familial connections to executive leadership, the trust administration would transfer to me. That's absurd, Levi said. We never agreed to that. You did, counsel said quietly. It's right here. Section 9.3. Signed by you, by Melody, witnessed by external counsel and filed with the state business registry. Catherine turned to Ethan. Did you finalize her termination paperwork before informing her? Ethan blinked. Yes. We processed it yesterday but told her today. That's standard. That's retroactive, I said. Which triggers the clause. The CFO was reading his own tablet now. His face had gone from confused to horrified. Oh my God. What? Levi snapped. The trust holds 68% of voting shares. So if she has administrative control. The CFO looked up directly at me. You control the company. Not just control, I corrected. I own the voting authority. Which means I decide how those shares vote on any board matter. including executive appointments. Levi stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. This is insane. You can't just. I already did, I said calmly. The protocol activated automatically when your nephew processed my termination retroactively. State filing confirmed it this morning. The SEC was notified 1 minute ago as required by law. Legal counsel was scrolling frantically. He's right. The automation triggered correctly. There's no reversal mechanism. The clause specifically states that any challenge must be filed before termination occurs. And that window? Catherine asked. Closed, counsel said. The moment they fired her, she gained control. The room went silent except for the quiet hum of the ventilation system. Levi stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You planned this. I prepared for possibilities, I said. You activated them. This was a setup, Ethan said, voice rising. You deliberately. I deliberately wrote protections into a corporate structure because I understood the risks of consolidating power. You deliberately ignored every document you signed because you assumed I'd stay quiet and grateful. Catherine leaned back in her chair, studying me. What do you intend to do with this control? I met her gaze. That depends. On what? On whether this board wants to do this the easy way or the hard way. Levi's face was red. You think you can just walk in here and... I think I just did, I said. And unless you want to spend the next 6 months in litigation you'll lose, I suggest you listen. The CFO closed his tablet. What do you want? First, Ethan's appointment to EVP is rescinded. Effective immediately. Ethan stood. You can't do that. I can actually. I have voting control. I just did. Second, I said, Levi, you're stepping down as CEO. Absolutely not, Levi snarled. I looked at counsel. If he refuses, what happens? Counsel sighed. With controlling vote, you can call for a leadership change. The board would have to comply or face a breach of fiduciary duty lawsuit. Catherine nodded slowly. He's correct. Levi looked around the table, searching for support. Nobody met his eyes. This is my company, he said, voice shaking. No, I replied. It's the shareholders' company. I just happen to control most of those shares now. You're welcome to stay on as an advisor. Generous severance. Positive references. But the CEO position ends today. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. This is extortion. This is consequences, I said. You wanted to clean house. Congratulations. You started with the wrong person. Catherine cleared her throat. Ms. Hughes, if Levi steps down, who do you propose leads the company? I stood. Promoting from within. Someone who understands operations, risk management, and how not to accidentally trigger legal protocols buried in merger documents. The CFO almost laughed. Unless anyone objects? Nobody spoke. Catherine looked at counsel. Can she do this? Legally? Yes. She has voting authority. She can appoint herself or anyone else. Then I move that we vote, Catherine said. All in favor of accepting Levi Harrington's resignation and appointing Melody Hughes as interim CEO, pending formal board review? One by one, hands went up. The board members who'd ignored me for years. The executives who'd watched me get walked out yesterday. Even the CFO after a long pause. Everyone except Levi and Ethan. Motion carries, Catherine said. I looked at Levi. You'll have until end of business Friday to transition your responsibilities. HR will handle the paperwork. His jaw clenched. You won't last 6 months. Maybe not, I said. But I'll last longer than you. Ethan grabbed his phone. I'm calling our lawyer. Feel free, I said. But the documents are filed, verified, and time-stamped. You're welcome to spend your trust fund on legal fees, but the outcome won't change. He stormed out. Levi followed, muttering something I didn't bother trying to hear. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled collectively. Catherine looked at me. That was impressive. That was necessary, I replied. She smiled faintly. Welcome to the corner office, Ms. Hughes. I sat back down. Let's table the celebrations and focus on actual work. We've got a company to run. And for the first time in 9 years, I didn't have to clean up someone else's mess. I was making my own decisions now. The corner office felt different when it was actually yours. Same view. Same furniture. But the weight of it changed when you weren't just visiting someone else's domain. I spent the weekend reviewing financial reports, operational audits, and strategic plans that had been gathering dust while Ethan played executive. Most of it was fixable. Some of it was laughable. All of it was now my responsibility. Monday morning I arrived at 7. By 8 I'd sent my first company-wide email as CEO. Subject: moving forward. Body: effective immediately, we're refocusing on operational excellence, transparent communication and sustainable growth. Changes will be communicated clearly and implemented thoughtfully. If you have concerns, my door is open. Short, direct. No corporate jargon about synergy or disruption. By 9 my calendar was flooded with meeting requests. By 10 I'd reorganized the executive team structure. By 11 I'd fired 3 senior managers who'd been coasting on nepotism and connections rather than competence. People were nervous. Good. Comfort breeds complacency. Around noon my assistant, newly assigned, still learning my preferences, knocked on the door. "Miss Hughes, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment but he says it's urgent." "Who?" "Levi Harrington." I almost smiled. "Send him in." Levi walked in looking like he hadn't slept. Tie loosened. Eyes red. The confident swagger replaced by something closer to desperation. I didn't stand. Didn't offer him a seat. He stood there, hands in his pockets, and for a long moment said nothing. Finally, "You won." I picked up my pen, the fountain pen, the one that had started all of this, and set it down deliberately. "I didn't win anything. You lost. There's a difference. I built this company. You ran it," I corrected. "Other people built it. Including me." He swallowed. "I'm asking you to reconsider. Let me stay on. Advisor role. Whatever you want. Just don't erase me." I leaned back in my chair. "You erased me first. Had my desk packed. My access revoked. Walked me out like I was a security risk. That was Ethan's idea. And you let it happen." He looked away. I sighed. "Levi, you hired me because I could see problems before they became disasters. But you stopped listening 3 years ago. You surrounded yourself with people who told you what you wanted to hear. And when I became inconvenient, you discarded me. I didn't think I'd what? Protect myself. Plan ahead. That's literally what you paid me to do." He met my eyes. "What happens now? Now you take your severance package. You sign the agreements. You move on. And maybe next time you read the documents before you sign them." He nodded slowly. Then turned to leave. "Levi," I called. He stopped. "For what it's worth, you were a decent CEO once. Before you forgot that loyalty runs both ways." He didn't respond. Just walked out. I watched him go, then turned back to my computer. There was work to do. 3 months later, the company's quarterly earnings exceeded projections for the first time in 2 years. Stock price stabilized. Employee satisfaction surveys showed marked improvement. Trade publications ran articles about the unexpected leadership transition and the mystery clause that had made it possible. I gave exactly 0 interviews. Catherine Frost stopped by my office one afternoon unannounced. "You're doing well," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "We're doing well," I corrected. "It's a team effort." She smiled. "Don't undersell yourself. You've made tough decisions and people respect that." "People fear it," I said. Fear and respect look similar from a distance. I set down the report I'd been reading. "Why are you really here, Catherine?" She leaned forward. "Because I want to understand something. Did you really plan all of this? 4 years ago, did you know you'd need that clause?" I considered the question. When I wrote those protocols, I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning survival. I'd seen what happened to people who built systems and then got pushed out. I wasn't going to be one of them. But you knew someone might try. I knew power makes people forget who helped them get it. She nodded. "Smart. Paranoid," I corrected. "Same thing," she said, standing. "Keep doing what you're doing, Melody. The board is happy. The shareholders are happy. That's all that matters." After she left, I stood at the window looking out at the city. Same view Levi used to have. Same skyline. Different perspective. My phone buzzed. A message from Arthur Caldwell. "Saw the news. Drinks on you next time." I smiled and texted back. "Fair enough." Then I returned to my desk, opened the next quarterly planning document and got back to work. Because here's what they don't tell you about revenge. It's not the satisfying moment when everything clicks into place. It's not the look on their faces when they realize they've lost. It's what comes after. The slow, steady work of proving you deserve to be there all along. The quiet satisfaction of building something better than what existed before. The knowledge that when they tried to erase you, you rewrote the entire story. I didn't just survive the betrayal. I turned it into a promotion. And unlike them, I actually read the fine print. 6 months into my tenure as CEO, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line: "Thank you." I almost deleted it. Assumed it was spam or some elaborate phishing attempt. But something made me open it. "Ms. Hughes, you don't know me. I'm a junior analyst in the finance department. I just wanted to say thank you for what you've done. Before you took over, this place felt like it was held together by duct tape and denial. Now it feels like we're actually building something sustainable. People care about their work again. Decisions make sense. Just wanted you to know that some of us notice." A grateful employee. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to my personal folder and closed my laptop for the day. That's when I knew I'd made the right choice. Not because I'd won some corporate chess match. Not because I'd gotten revenge on people who underestimated me. But because the work mattered more than the victory. 1 year after the takeover, I stood in front of the entire company at our annual meeting. The auditorium was packed. Employees I'd never met. Departments I was still learning. All of them looking at me like I had answers. I kept my remarks brief. A year ago, this company was at a crossroads. We could have continued down a path of shortcuts and surface-level strategy, or we could have committed to doing things the right way. You chose the right way. Not me. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. We've restructured 17 departments. We've launched 4 new products. We've increased revenue by 23% while reducing operational waste by 15%. Those numbers matter, but they're not what I'm most proud of. Another pause. What I'm proud of is this. When vendors call, they trust us. When clients sign contracts, they believe we'll deliver. When employees come to work, they know their contributions matter. That's not something you can fake or manipulate or spin. That's culture. And culture is what separates companies that survive from companies that thrive. The applause was polite but genuine. Afterward, as I walked back to my office, I passed the conference room where Levi had fired me. The glass walls were still there. The table was the same. But everything else had changed. My assistant met me at the door. "Ms. Hughes, you have 3 messages. The board chair wants to schedule a review meeting. The CFO needs sign-off on the budget proposal. And there's a request from a business publication asking for an interview about your leadership transition. Tell the board chair I'm available Thursday. Approve the CFO's request if the numbers match our sustainability targets. And decline the interview." She nodded and left. I sat at my desk, Levi's old desk, now mine, and pulled out the fountain pen. The one that had triggered everything. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of it. Some people would have framed it. Mounted it on the wall as a trophy. A reminder of the day they won. I put it back in my drawer. Because it wasn't about winning. It never was. It was about being prepared. About understanding that the people who build the systems are the ones who control them. About knowing that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Levi thought he could erase me because I didn't fight back loudly. Ethan thought he could replace me because I didn't make scenes. They both confused quiet competence with compliance. They learned the difference. I opened my laptop and reviewed the next quarter's strategic initiatives. Product launches. Market expansions. Partnership negotiations. Real work. The kind that builds value instead of just extracting it. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. "Board vote is unanimous. Contract extension approved. Congratulations, CEO Hughes." I didn't celebrate. Didn't pour champagne or call friends or post anything on social media. I just texted back. "Thank you. Let's keep working." Because that's what this was really about. Not the title. Not the revenge. Not even the justice of it all. It was about proving that the person they underestimated was the person they needed most. And now they'd never forget it. 2 years in, the company went through its most successful quarter in a decade. The board offered me a permanent CEO contract with equity stakes and performance bonuses that would have seemed impossible when I was cleaning up other people's messes for a fraction of the recognition. I negotiated better terms. Not for myself, for the employees who'd actually done the work. Profit-sharing structures. Enhanced benefits. Clear promotion pathways based on merit instead of proximity to power. The board grumbled but agreed. Catherine told me privately that I was the first CEO in her 30 years of board service who'd used leverage to benefit others instead of themselves. I told her that's because I remembered what it felt like to be disposable. Around that time I got a LinkedIn message from Ethan. He'd bounced between 3 startups, each one failing faster than the last. His profile now described him as an entrepreneurial consultant, which is what people call themselves when they're unemployed but too proud to admit it. His message read, "I know we didn't end on good terms, but I wanted to reach out. I've learned a lot since leaving. If you're ever looking for strategic advisors, I'd love to discuss opportunities." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I closed it without responding. Some bridges don't deserve rebuilding. 3 months later, I heard through industry contacts that Levi had taken a position at a mid-sized firm. Not a CEO role. Senior advisor. The kind of position they give to people who used to matter. He was doing fine apparently. Making decent money. Staying out of trouble. I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just the mild awareness that his story and mine had diverged and would never intersect again. That's the thing about revenge people don't understand. It's not satisfying because the other person suffers. It's satisfying because you stop caring whether they suffer at all. 5 years after the takeover, I stood in the same parking garage where I'd received the first calendar deletion alert. Level 3. Same cracked concrete. Same flickering light that maintenance never quite fixed. I'd kept parking there even after becoming CEO. Even after I could have claimed the reserved executive spot on level 1. Something about the routine mattered. A reminder of where the journey started. My car was different now. Upgraded. But still practical. Still unassuming. As I walked toward it, I noticed someone had left a note under my windshield wiper. I almost ignored it. Probably a flyer for a car wash or some pyramid scheme. But I picked it up anyway. Handwritten. Simple paper. No signature. "They told me you were difficult. They told me you burned bridges. They told me I should avoid working with you. I'm glad I didn't listen. Thank you for giving me a chance when nobody else would. Floor 7 East Wing." I didn't know who wrote it. Didn't need to. I folded the note, put it in my pocket and drove home. That night I fed my cat, older now, slower but still greeting me at the door like I'd been gone for years instead of hours, and poured a glass of wine I actually wanted this time. I opened my laptop not for work, but to write something I'd been thinking about for months. A manual. Not for executives or board members. For people like I used to be. The fixers. The ones in the background making sure everything runs smoothly while someone else takes credit. I titled it, Contingency Protocols for the Underestimated. Chapter 1. Build systems they don't understand. Chapter 2. Document everything. Chapter 3. Never assume loyalty is reciprocal. Chapter 4. Prepare for the worst, especially when things seem stable. I wrote for 3 hours. 12,000 words. Scenarios. Strategies. Legal frameworks. Not bitter. Not angry. Just practical. Clinical. The same way I'd approach any risk assessment. When I finished, I saved it, encrypted it, and sent copies to 3 people I trusted. Lawyers who worked with vulnerable executives. Consultants who specialized in corporate protection. One business professor who taught ethics and power dynamics. I didn't publish it publicly. That would defeat the purpose. But it would exist. And someday someone else would need it. The 10th anniversary of my hiring at the company came and went without fanfare. A decade of fixing problems, surviving betrayal, and rebuilding something stronger than what had existed before. The company had tripled in size. We'd expanded into 6 new markets. Employee retention was the highest in the industry. Profit margins were healthy but not exploitative. The brand meant something again. Catherine Frost retired from the board at age 72. At her farewell dinner, she pulled me aside. "You know what the difference is between you and Levi?" she asked. I waited. He wanted to be powerful. He wanted to be effective. I smiled. "Is there a difference?" "There is when things go wrong. Power collapses. Effectiveness endures." She handed me a small wrapped box. I opened it. Inside was a fountain pen. Different from mine, but similar in weight and quality. The note read, "For the next emergency protocol you'll need to write. CF." I thanked her. She left the dinner early, declining the speeches and toasts. That was Catherine. No need for performance. Just quiet competence until the end. I kept the pen on my desk next to my original one. 2 reminders. One of how I survived. One of how I chose to lead afterward. 15 years after I first walked into that building as the newly hired chief risk officer, I announced my retirement. Not because I was tired. Not because the work had become burdensome. But because I'd built something stable enough to survive without me. That was always the goal. Create systems that outlast their creators. I promoted my successor from within. A woman who'd started in operations and worked her way up through merit, preparation, and the same quiet competence that had defined my own career. She understood risk. She understood people. She understood that power without responsibility is just theft with better branding. On my last day, I didn't make a speech. Didn't want a party. Just cleaned out my office, said goodbye to the people who mattered, and walked out the same way I'd walked in years ago. Except this time nobody was erasing me. I drove to the storage facility one last time. Unit 312. The lockbox was still there, covered in dust and time. I opened it and pulled out the original contingency protocols. The ones that had saved me when everything fell apart. I almost threw them away. Almost burned them like some symbolic closure. But I didn't. Instead, I sealed them in a new fireproof container, updated the documentation, and left instructions with my lawyer. If anyone ever tried to challenge the legitimacy of what I'd built, the evidence would be there. Undeniable. Permanent. Then I locked the unit for the last time and drove away. Now years later I live quietly. Consulting occasionally. Mentoring when asked. Writing more of those contingency manuals for people who think they're safe until they're not. Sometimes I see headlines about corporate takeovers. Founders pushed out. Executives betrayed. Companies imploding because someone forgot that loyalty is a two-way contract. I don't feel superior when I read those stories. Just sad. Because most of those situations were preventable. A few clauses. A little preparation. Some healthy paranoia disguised as risk management. But people don't think that way. They assume stability means safety. They assume good work equals job security. They assume the people who hired them will remember why they were valuable. They're wrong. I learned that the hard way. Survived it. Turned it into something better. And if you're reading this thinking it could never happen to you, I'll leave you with this. I thought the same thing. Right up until the calendar alert told me I was being erased. The difference between me and most people isn't that I saw betrayal coming. It's that I prepared for it anyway. So go ahead. Like this story. Subscribe if it resonated. Share it with someone who thinks they're irreplaceable. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. You're replaceable until you make yourself indispensable. And indispensability isn't about working harder. It's about building systems, protecting yourself, and understanding that the quiet ones don't lose. We just wait longer to win. They terminated me at 9 a.m. By 2 p.m. I owned the company. And by the time they realized what happened, it was already too late to stop it. That's not revenge. That's preparation meeting opportunity. And if you're smart, you'll start preparing too. Because the next time someone tries to erase you, you won't just survive. You'll own the eraser.